Large and influential countries such as the USA, China, and India are developing and implementing blockchain technology, while Europe has decided to take a completely opposite direction. In this recording, you will learn everything about the European Union's war on cryptocurrencies, the new regulations that will be introduced in the near future, and all the restrictions and barriers awaiting the citizens of the old continent. Crypto Explain. Everything you need to know to stay safe. There are truly many important and significant changes. I will tell you about the 8 most crucial and controversial ideas, as these are the ones that shock and frustrate all European crypto enthusiasts. In the previous material, I talked about the European Union's war on social media platforms, and it turns out that in addition to strict regulations in this area, the European Parliament has decided to tackle other issues that it finds problematic. The first of these is the withdrawal of Tether and other stablecoins from Europe. What is this about? There is something called MiCA. It is a regulation on the cryptocurrency market in the European Union, which contains information on how various types of crypto assets can be issued and traded. In short, it is a kind of user manual for cryptocurrencies written by politicians for us, ordinary people, so that we know what, according to them, is good and appropriate and what is bad. At this moment, we know that the regulations impose strict requirements on stablecoins in terms of safeguards, transparency, and oversight. Additionally, all stablecoin issuers are required to obtain authorization as an electronic money institution in the EU and comply with strict rules regarding reserve management and transparency, which currently means that only EURC, EURCV, and USDC meet these requirements. Will other coins meet all the requirements set by the European Commission in the future? At this point, it's hard to say, as there are many regulations, the requirements are difficult to fulfill, and only a few can enjoy access to the European markets. Continuing on, the appetite for banning cryptocurrencies was not limited only to Tether or DAI, because in addition to them, all anonymous cryptocurrencies will be blocked. Europe wants to get rid of Monero, Zcash, and Dash, as these are coins that can be sent without the ability to trace the sender, a feature that doesn't sit well with those who create and enforce regulations. Most people think that all cryptocurrencies are anonymous, but that's not the case at all, because for the vast majority of them, when the transaction history is recorded on a public blockchain, it is possible to trace the entire history of operations from the very beginning of the network's existence. There are only a few individual blockchains that offer solutions allowing funds to be sent from one user to another without leaving a trace, and these are the ones that will soon disappear. In this matter, I can fully understand the purpose of such actions and why the government wants to achieve this effect, but I wonder to what extent they realize that it is not possible to effectively enforce such a ban, because anyone who wants to bypass it, even a teenager with a smartphone, will be able to do so without any problem. Due to all the chaos surrounding the war on restrictions, many centralized exchanges are completely withdrawing from Europe because they simply can't keep up with the European Commission's ideas. And I don't blame them. There are so many new regulations, they are so complex. And on top of that, they often change, that it takes an enormous amount of work to keep up, implement them, and remain compliant. The result of this situation is that many large and small companies are withdrawing from Europe, as it is the only thing they can currently do for their own safety to avoid massive financial penalties or other legal consequences. If that wasn't enough, another idea that is set to be implemented is the complete ban on owning any anonymous account. And we are, of course, talking about services that comply with regulations and operate legally. Binance, in its information section, has listed the key guidelines on this matter, where we can see that the deadline has been set for the end of July 2027. You can also see here that even transactions from digital wallets exceeding €1,000 will require completing the KYC procedure, which is unprecedented and one of the most restrictive proposals. What does this mean in practice? It means that we will no longer be able to use decentralized wallets like MetaMask, Ledger, or Trezor unless we provide our personal data and undergo facial scanning for user identification. Wallets of this kind function like computer programs or applications, just like Microsoft Word or the Gmail app, yet they have still ended up on the blacklist. Now that I think about it, it would probably be easier to list the things the European Parliament doesn't want to block, because honestly, there aren't that many, rather than list all the elements they disapprove of. But I'll try to find something that is considered acceptable. Of course, acceptable according to the European Parliament, not according to me. What isn't bad? In response to all these restrictions, lawmakers are introducing a mandatory digital identity wallet, which, according to the EU, is a good thing, and we won't have a choice, because by the end of 2026, every European will be required to have one if they want to use, for example, social media platforms. This is what I mentioned at the very beginning of this recording. You can learn the details in the separate video on my channel, and the link will appear at the end of this video. Getting back to the topic, I fully understand the desire to profit and keep the digital world under control, as these are characteristics of every government. And it's precisely because of them that this whole blockchain offensive began. However, I believe that all of this is being done in a very wrong way. The tendencies to take over the monopoly and restrict absolutely everything, including the free market, remind me of rather communist and socialist actions, which, in every historical case I know, ultimately led to economic disaster. And it seems to me that the long-term consequences of these actions we are now discussing will head in the same direction. This may result in Europe falling behind all the countries where everyone is free to set sail and operate in an unrestricted way. Why? Because all external companies involved in cryptography, which compete under the principles of healthy business competition, and as a result of that competition, are forced to offer better and more tailored solutions for a growing and demanding market, are being removed and replaced by the monopoly of a single operator, the union and its rules. Unfortunately, such a solution does not meet the expectations of today's consumer and brings more harm than good. Very often, this kind of setup means low quality, high costs, severe limitations in functionality, and a generally negative reception. Can such a configuration put the continent at the forefront of the digital revolution, reaping all the benefits that come with progress in this direction? I don't think so. Lastly, don't forget that leverage trading had already been restricted earlier, as high leverage was deemed inappropriate. The ability to use launch pads and launch pools was also limited because, according to the political elites who govern us, earning money from legal, emerging tech companies, for example, in the United States, is also considered wrong. To sum it all up, for contrast and a broader perspective, according to the European Union, we are allowed to lose money on cigarettes and alcohol, which are subject to excise and taxes. We are also allowed to lose it on gambling, which is legal in some countries. But if we want to lose money on cryptocurrencies, we no longer have that right. Is this really how it should be? That's a question each of us must answer for ourselves. If you don't agree with these regulations and want to know how to protect yourself from all of this, check out my cryptocurrency course, where you'll learn the right skills and everything you need to know about maintaining your privacy. Good luck!